Okay. Alrighty. Hey, everyone, if you're just joining in, my name's Richie. I have Becca here with me. We'll be your host for the webinar today. We'd wait for another minute or two here to let a few more people join in, and then we'll get started. Again, this webinar is a part of our product updates webinar series. We do this monthly. You can find these on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And we talk about what's latest that's come into the product. We dive a little bit into talking about why did we launch the feature and also show you how of the feature. So if you haven't attended any of the prior ones, you can always find them on our YouTube channel as we do these monthly. As we go in, because a bunch of people join these webinars, if you are tracking along with us and clicking along with us, sometimes that can create a lot of load on the product because normally we don't expect a lot of users at the same time clicking on the same button, right? We do try to take care, and especially for these webinars, we increase our ability or load capacity to be able to take those clicks. But if it's okay, listen to the webinar, try to grasp what's going on, and then after that, follow along and do the steps. You can even try to follow along, like try to click along with us now. But in case we see slowness, we might ask you to stop doing that. Cool. We're 3 minutes past the start time. So and we have quite a few participants who have joined. So we'll get started with this webinar. Hi again, my name's Richie. I have Becca here with me. This is the product updates webinar. So thank you so much for joining this. In this webinar, we don't cover all the basics of PriceLabs, right? We just cover our product updates that we've launched in the last month, and particularly key product updates that we want to talk about. We take these a little bit as education of why you should do it, but also of practical implementation of how you do it. I'll talk a little bit about the education side of why today, and then Becca will cover the how of some of the updates that we have launched. If you have not attended a PriceLabs training webinar, which covers most of our features that you should be using, in that case, I call these training webinars. Now we have changed those to calling them and actually implementing them as group onboardings, where these are usually small group onboardings of 3 to 5 to 10 users at any point of time. Becca, if you can paste the link for that in the chat so that people can grab it, that'll be helpful. And as we go through the webinar today, if you have any questions, please use, there's a Q&A thing at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Use that. It helps us keep track of who have we answered to and who have we not answered to. Preferably don't use the chat option. While chat option is easy, it's just harder for us to keep track of. Finally, this webinar is getting recorded, and you can find the recording on our YouTube channel as you go through. And in a little bit, Becca will also post the link to our YouTube channel in the chat box. Becca, something to say?
Right now, the chat is disabled. Would you like to allow people to in a chat?
No, preferably not. Let's use Q&As. Let's use Q&As. Yeah. But you can send links, right? I'm hoping everyone can see the links that Becca sent for our training, and we'll also be shortly sending the link for our YouTube channel where you can find the product updates webinars. Also, if you're joining these webinars and English is not your primary language, we also do these webinars in Italian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And you can find the schedules of those on our product updates page, which also Becca will be sending in a little bit. It's on our website, Becca, just in case. Cool. Okay. With that, let me start sharing my screen and get right to the meat of this. Okay. Cool. Today, the big update that we have to share with you is we've introduced a hotel price tracker as a part of PriceLabs, right? And as we go through today, we'll talk about three things. We'll talk about three or four things, right? We'll talk about why benchmarking in general, which I'll talk about, and some of it might seem repetitive, but I'll talk about why should you be using benchmarking. Then Becca here will be helping me with how to use the neighborhood data tab. A lot of it has not changed, but in context of benchmarking, we want to talk about that. And then the new tab that we have, hotel data, how to use it, when to use it. And then finally, over the last, if you've followed our product updates, we have made a bunch of improvements to our portfolio analytics and particularly the pacing reports. We have refined them further. And so we'll cover what has changed in these pacing reports. Cool. And if you've just joined in, this is getting recorded and we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel. All right. So firstly, to start off with, why benchmarking, right? The idea is fairly straightforward. We operate in a fairly dynamic and competitive world. PriceLabs on its own looks at the market and adjusts your rates automatically, right? But sometimes as users, you may want to look at to saying how am I doing relative to market, right, or relative to certain set of competitors, right? And that's kind of why we allow this benchmarking possibility in PriceLabs, right? Now, as a process, benchmarking allows you to do a few different things, right? And not necessarily in PriceLabs, but in general, right? It helps you to identify your strengths and weaknesses, whether that's in terms of amenities or whether it's in terms of, are you selling more weekends compared to your competitors, or are you selling more weekdays compared to your competitors, or things like that. Helps you to identify your strengths and weaknesses. And as we go through actually in the product, you'll see it. Allows you to stay competitive. Again, PriceLabs does this automatically for you, right? But sometimes when it comes down to setting base prices, or when it comes down to seeing your rates for certain events or some specific competitors, it allows you to quickly be able to see how they are pricing versus what we are doing, right? Some learning best practices. Again, PriceLabs incorporates it automatically, which is a key part of our algorithm benchmarking itself, right? But you're able to see if someone's increasing prices for certain days extremely. PriceLabs will automatically adjust for it, but you're also able to see it. Setting realistic goals and expectations is an important part of benchmarking, and especially future-looking benchmarking. We can set goals based on historical data, right? But if the market is doing really well or worse off, looking at future benchmarking allows you to see either no one is getting booked or everyone's getting booked. And so you can realistically set your goals, right? And optimizing pricing strategy, again, PriceLabs does it, but you can, it allows you to quickly see what's happening in the market. Now with PriceLabs, there are two ways of creating comp sets or competitive sets for short-term rentals. We call them competitive sets or comp sets. They allow, you can use specific criteria to filter certain properties and add them to your competitor list, right? There are two ways to do this in PriceLabs. We automatically filter plus minus one bedroom or plus minus two bedroom, depending on your bedroom size, in your neighborhood, and grab 350 closest properties and show them to you as your nearby listings. Under that, you also have a compare competitor calendar. Again, as we dive into the product, you'll see this more. Compare competitor calendar, where you can see how specific 10 properties in that comp set are pricing specifically. And you can also create your own custom comp set using our market dashboards, where you can use any level of filters, right? A key point to note about these comp sets is that they don't impact your pricing, but they're really used for benchmarking so that you can see how you are priced relative to the competition. How do they these comp sets help you? One, to discover local competitors, right? Sometimes you may not be aware of like how many properties or what kind of properties are in your market. You can do the discovery on Airbnb, for example, but you can also do it directly via PriceLabs because we'd show you the 350 closest properties and what are they charging, et cetera, right? Number two, it lets you easily track performance. What is the occupancy of the market, or what is the occupancy of an individual listing in comparison to your own listing? It allows you to customize more easily as to what to select in the market itself, right? Whether that is at nearby listing level, where you can select for bedroom size. It's in the competitor calendar where you can select 10 specific properties, or it's picking up a specific comp set in market dashboards where you can filter for whatever you'd like, right? Like even, hey, does this property have a pool, or is this a beachfront property, or things like that, right? And then finally, like I said, it helps you benchmark performance for you to be able to see, are you doing similar, better, or worse than the market? Now, with this, did I move in the right direction? Yes. With this, the big change that we have introduced is also for you to be able to see data of hotels, right? Now, why, like, if you're primarily a short-term rental manager, right? Why look at hotels, right? Although we have a lot of clientele that is hotels or apart hotels, etc., and for them, it's fairly obvious why look at hotel data. But if you're a short-term rental manager, why look at hotels? If you own, say, a luxury one-bedroom villa, or if you own a studio apartment which is very close to a nearby hotel, your guests are still looking at both of them, right? Your guests are looking at vacation rentals, and they're also looking at hotel data, right? So for us, we don't just want to limit our analysis to Airbnbs or VRBOs. We also want to look at what's happening on the hotel side, right? And so for us, in our algorithm, we analyze hotel pricing trends and take them into account. But for you to also be able to easily see it is the reason why we've introduced this, for you to easily see pricing trends of what hotels in your area are doing. And something to be conscious about is, say, if you have a 3-bedroom property and hotels generally have like 1 bedrooms, right? So you may want to factor that in, that they have 3 bedrooms and you have 3 bedrooms and they have 1 bedroom. You might want to consider 3x of their price, what they're listing at, right? It helps you to identify high demand periods, right? PriceLabs does a lot in terms of what's happening in terms of market occupancy for short-term rental side and automatically increases prices. It also looks at dates when hotels are increasing prices and takes that into factoring to increase your rates. We manage a list of events in our database to adjust your rates, right? But hotels also have day-to-day revenue managers who are every day going in and looking and adjusting, right? And so sometimes it's a good idea to just look at, are your prices also increasing when hotels consider high demand periods for their markets, right? Off-peak season discounts, sometimes as individuals, as property managers, we may feel very strongly about for those off-peak seasons or slow seasons, how much should we be discounting? Hotels give us a good sense of how far do we need to discount sometimes to get those demands, right? Or get those bookings. Local events and their impact, very similar to high demand trends. And then finally, it allows you to monitor the changes, right? If for whatever reason a new hotels come up in your market, which will change supply, not just short-term rentals, right? Or existing hotel has closed down, it'll help you monitor the supply. So all of this helps you understand and price your properties better. Again, PriceLabs monitors a lot of it, but we do want to make PriceLabs as transparent as possible, as much data as possible. You don't always need to use it, but if you want to use it, we want to have it very easily on your fingertips to be able to understand what's happening in your market, whether that's short-term rental market via our neighborhood data tab, or whether by our hotel data tab, so that you can understand what's happening on the hotel side. With that, I'd like to pass this on to Becca to talk specifically about what the neighborhood data tab and its features are. Again, we've had this for some time, for last 1 year, I guess, at least, maybe longer. but some of the things keep changing. So we wanted to cover that aspect. And then we also want to talk about the hotel data tab. Becca, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
We did just have our first question come in, but I haven't had a chance to look at it. Okay, yeah, I'll get to this in a second when we're talking about
Paul,
that
as we talk about the hotel data tab, we'll get to your question.
Cool. So everybody should be able to see my screen now. As Richie was saying, the neighborhood data tab isn't new, but you can definitely use it in sort of new ways with the improvements that we've made. So first, we're going to take a look at some of these key data charts that you should be referencing from time to time to give you a little bit more insight about, your market, your position in the market. So I'm just hopping over to my demo account here. I've got the South Beach studio in Miami. We're going to pop into the neighborhood data. It's right next to your calendar here. Now, the first thing that I like to do is just point out this current bedroom selection. By default, we're going to be looking at similar size bedrooms. In this case, this is a studio, so we're looking at rooms, studios, and one bedrooms. If I wanted to be a little bit more specific and just say I only want to look at studios, I can just select studios by moving those little bubbles over the appropriate bedroom count. You'll notice here as well that I can either choose nearby listings or market dashboards. So if you are an operator that has like a very unique listing and you want to hand pick some of the comps that are kind of fueling the data in this chart, then go on over to our market dashboards. You can create comp sets and then pull that in here. We do a really good webinar. I say it's really good because I run it. A really good market dashboards webinar at the beginning of the month. So if you're not sure about any of that, feel free to join us then or look on YouTube. But cool. So once you have your current selection tuned in, let's take a look at this future pricing chart. So again, focusing on benchmarking. So where are your prices sitting relative to your competition? This isn't new, so I won't spend too much time on this. But basically, we've got this black line. One thing that we changed this month, it used to be called the recommended price. We've now changed that to final price. So essentially, if I was to click sync now, this is the final, most recent calculation that will be sent to your PMS or connected account. And you can see where your prices sit against the market. So we've got various colors in the background, kind of a light gray, a dark pink, and a lighter pink, representing the span of pricing for each specific day. So here we're looking at Saturday, May 20th. Hopefully my screen isn't too small for y'all to see. But we've got the market's 25th percentile at 159, the 50th, so like the middle range of pricing around 205, the 75th at 289, so that's kind of like the higher end of pricing, and then the highest percentile that we show, the 90th percentile, is at 417. So where do you want to be priced in this sort of range? It's dependent on the market demand. It's dependent on your goals, your type of listing. Typically, we like to say if it's last minute, there's less opportunity to book those dates out, or if it's really low demand, you want to be sort of in the lower percentile. And then if you have really high demand for specific dates, maybe it's a holiday like New Year's, you've got a ton of time to book it, it's okay to really be at the top of the market there. You might not necessarily be booked at that final price that we're recommending right now, but once those dates get closer, you're positioned to get the most lucrative booking possible. Anything to add on the future pricing chart before we move to occupancy, Richie?
No. There's a question about can we choose comps, and it shows the range, and that is the next part of the webinar, next part of the presentation. So
yeah, so you can choose, like, if you want your the entire set to be handpicked, the entire set of data that we're pulling from, then you would use market dashboards to do that. By default, this is going to be about the 350 or so closest listings to you, sometimes less if you're in a very rural area. But then you can hand pick sort of in this next section here. I do want to just stop before we look at that and show you the occupancy chart because we've made some really big improvements here that are super neat. Normally, we will show you just the market occupancy and your occupancy represented by kind of this like gray shaded area. If you only have one listing, you can really only be 0% or 100% booked on every given day, right? Because you don't have multi-units that can be like 50% occupied. So here we will show you when you're booked with this gray section and how the market is currently booked, but that doesn't necessarily give you a ton of context as to what performance in this market is looking like. So you can add last year data just using this little check mark here, and it'll add 2 additional lines. So first I'll hide the market occupancy final. In this market, you're now seeing the red line, which is this year, as of today, current occupancy against the market occupancy last year today. So I can see that last year, if I'm comparing Saturday, May 27th to the 27th of, I guess Saturday, May 28th last year, we do offset it just because of day of week trends. You can see that we're actually less booked up in this market. 47.9% occupancy last year, this time only 32% occupancy this year. This can help you start to make adjustments in your expectations for certain dates, right? So if consistently I'm seeing that my market is pacing behind, so my red line is lower than my gray line, that might mean that the market is softening a little bit, and I might want to come down on maybe my base price, be a little bit more aggressive with my occupancy based adjustments. But it can also help you identify potentially dates. I'm not actually seeing any on this graph, but say there's a new festival or a new event that has been announced, you should see really the opposite, where there's the red line is above the gray line for a specific weekend. That's you saying, okay, there's something new going on that this market hasn't seen before. Maybe I need to put a date specific override, change my minimum price, change my minimum stay for those dates. I can also add a third line here. This is our market occupancy last year final. So after the dates pass, what is the final occupancy? So the gray solid line is as of today, and then the gray dotted line is where it ended up. Because you can look at September and say, oh shoot, we're only 3% booked. Is that scary? Or is it, is it okay? And that's what the pacing is going to give you. But the dotted line, the final, is going to give you almost like the potential in the market. If everything goes the same as last year, where can we sort of expect generally to end up? So in this market, maybe we are pacing behind for a couple of these dates, but we still have a lot of room to book up. We're not pacing behind too bad if we're looking in July. But for these closer dates where we are pacing behind quite a bit, we might not see that same occupancy final in the market. Any questions here so far?
Not specific to this. There are 2 questions. One, what is last seen price? I was just going to write that, but if you want to specify that.
Yeah. No, that's very important. Yeah. So the last seen price, so this is back up to the future pricing chart. There's the black solid line, which is our sort of current recommendation. And then the last seen price can be one of sort of 2 options. Either it's the last price that we pushed if you're currently syncing with PriceLabs. So you can use this, like say you change your base price, or say you change like a discounting or premium in PriceLabs. You can come here and actually review this chart and see what those changes look like before actually syncing. The other use case is if you haven't started syncing yet, and you just want to make sure that like our prices are generally in line with what you've done in the past, you can compare and contrast sort of our recommendations with what you're currently doing. Essentially, it's the price that we're reading from your PMS or connected account.
Very cool. Becca, a quick question. I think maybe just chart orientation, and we'll add a video for this, right? There's a question around how did you add and remove specific lines to the graph? Can you just spend like 2 minutes talking about how to navigate these graphs itself, which is adding, removing lines, how to zone in on a particular section, and how to go back maybe?
Yeah, and this is really important to know, because if you're in portfolio analytics, if you're in, market dashboards, it all works kind of the same. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. To add and remove lines, you'll just go down to the key, right? So basically, if I don't want to see that final price, I can click on it and it will remove it. If I don't want to see last seen price, I can click on it and remove it. say I'm comparing my prices and I don't have a really nice listing and I don't ever want to be in the 75th to 90th percentile, I can click on that sort of shaded area and it will remove from the graph. If you ever want to reset, if you're like, I don't know what I did, you can double click on any, oh, I guess I thought that
Not
that would
this.
actually add the stuff back, but I guess it doesn't. You can zoom in by just clicking and dragging. That will zoom into sort of a specific window. If you want to be more specific instead of just a time period, you can zoom in again by doing more of a diagonal drag instead of horizontal. And again, just double clicking to sort of zoom back out. Along the side here, you can also drag it up and down if you want. Not
as
super
useful though.
useful,
Yeah.
but you can do, you can play with it in a bunch of different ways. Again, if you mess it up, it's okay. Just double click. That's kind of the best.
Yeah. If you double click on the white space in the graph area, it'll go back to the normal.
Yeah,
normal
if I just double click anywhere on the page, it's not going to do anything. It has to be on
in the graph area. Yeah. Cool. Next, what is ad pickup? I guess people are seeing that. And can you talk about that?
So I'm going to actually remove add last year's data just so we can talk about what pickup is first before we get too complicated. Pickup is essentially how much occupancy has been gained in the market in the past 7 days. So it can be different time periods if you're talking about pickup in general as a metric, but we're looking at the past 7 days in this market. So if we hover over like Friday, May 5th, for example, currently it's 54.3% occupied. And the market pickup is 25.6. So if we had looked at this weekend 7 days ago, it would have been about 25% less booked than it is now. So yeah, does that make sense? Sometimes that's a little confusing. Cool. But I can add last year data and it gets a little bit messy. So again, I'm going to hide maybe the final, and I'm going to hide the same time last year. And you can actually compare the market pickup. So the booking activity that happened in the market last year, this time. So 7 days from, I guess what day is it? The 25th of April. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No questions on pickup. I think you've answered the pickup one. I think there is some confusion on what is market occupancy. Just to quickly clarify the question around, is market occupancy based on my property's specific occupancy? Market occupancy is based on your specific specific property. But for that specific property, we look at a hyperlocal area, which is what Becca was trying to show in that nearby listing area, right? And if you scroll down, you can also see the graph of what this hyperlocal market is. So it's these properties, and so we're assume we have 100 properties in this market and in this hyperlocal area. So when we say market occupancy, we're talking about this hyperlocal neighborhood's occupancy, right? It is not specific to it's not your property's occupancy. It is for that neighborhood's occupancy, right? And the intent is, how is that whole neighborhood? So in this case, I'm not sure, maybe this is Florida. How is that particular region in maybe Miami or wherever that is? I see Miami Beach here. So in that Miami region, how is the neighborhood doing? So if you scroll up, Becca, on the occupancy chart, how is that neighborhood doing relative to last year? Right. And so if we brought in market occupancy last year today or market occupancy final, it is that location graph that you were able to see. How is that doing relative to last year, right? Your own occupancy is that gray vertical that you see on in May. Becca, if you can put your mouse on that, your own occupancy. Yeah, those dates are where you're occupied. Now there's one more question around, is there any way that shows your own overall occupancy, you can or your own occupancy. This is something that is easily accessible via portfolio analytics today. In due course, we'll also be adding this listing level information at listing level itself. But today it is available via portfolio analytics, where you can see for your whole portfolio or for each individual property, what was the overall occupancy, either by month or even by dates or whatever level you wanted to see it at. Cool. I think there is some related. How big a radius do you use to compare my unit to competing units? Do you want to quickly answer that, Becca?
I believe we cut it off at 50 kilometers, maybe
Yeah.
less than that. Of course, it is market specific, though. Like if you are in like a mountain town and you're near like a ski resort, we might have drawn the market just a little bit different, so the different sort of market trends aren't bleeding through. Generally, we can pick up the 350 within that 50-kilometer radius. But again, if you're in a very rural area, you might see a little bit less.
Yeah, again, like we go 350 listings from your listing, plus minus 1 bedroom. If you're smaller bedroom sizes, if you're large bedroom sizes, I think it's plus minus 2. And then if it's even larger bedroom sizes, then that comp set expands. Again, the intent is for us is to capture 300, 350 bedrooms. And then if the density, like in Miami, it could be achieved in less than half a kilometer or a kilometer, half a mile or a mile. But in a rural area, we may have to go to 5 miles or 10 miles before we hit that 350 kind of a comp set, right? We don't want to go too far either, because then the market itself changes and it's not representative either, right? There's a question around, is there a way to see occupancy of whole of Miami? Not for all of Miami, not presently today, but you can use market dashboards to figure out for certain regions in Miami what that occupancy looks like. And then there are some, can you increase, decrease kilometer mile analyzing occupancy just for my neighborhood? Yes, Becca, can you move to the market dashboards part of it and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry. So, sorry, I thought I had one. Am I crazy? Here we go. Here, so we'll look at this market. You want me to actually look into market dashboards and show them how to, okay, sorry. So, this is a market dashboard. If you wanted to, so say I'm looking at Las Vegas, I could reduce sort of the radius that we're pulling in from and then hand pick via our comp set option. Again, we're not going to really get into the nitty gritty of how to do this. We have a couple of market dashboard recordings on our YouTube channel. But once you've created a comp set, you can then pull that into the neighborhood data area. This one here. I don't have a South Beach comp set, unfortunately, so it won't look right, but I could, instead of saying nearby listings, choose my market dashboard, select whichever dashboard I have that corresponds with this. And then maybe I would say, okay, let me look at my studio comp set or my studio with pool comp set. And then all of the data that's actually feeding this report is going to come from those listings that I've handpicked, maybe from a smaller radius. Maybe they have a certain number of, ratings on Airbnb or Vrbo, but that really gives you control over the listings that are fueling this data here. Now, sort of on a smaller scale, you can use our compare competitor calendar to hand pick listings and sort of gain insights into your sort of direct competitors instead of gaining, like a more market level view. So here I can come in and we've been looking at this map. I'll say, oops, now that I've selected a market dashboard, it's gonna give me funny. If I do nearby listings. If you select a market dashboard in a different market than your listing is in, you're not going to see the correct listings on the map. So here now all my listings have shown back up. Maybe I want to look at the ones that are right across the street from me. I can say, okay, this one has a nice pool like mine has. It has professional photos. This listing is very similar to my listing. So I'm going to go back in and say, that's a direct competitor. I want to pay attention to their pricing. So that's the Sobe Getaway. So I'm going to click this little bed icon. Then I can just type in, what was the name of it? Sobe South. Okay. There it is. And then I can click this little columns icon, kind of looks like a jail cell. And this is going to give you, again, sort of like a listing level view of your competitor. So you can see exactly what your prices are, or your recommended or final prices are, against the prices of the listings around you. If the dates are crossed off, that's basically saying that it is either booked or blocked for those dates. So you can quickly see, okay, this sort of midweek date, my competitor has 3 nights open, they're at 120. I'm a little bit higher. Maybe if it's last minute, I might want to come in and do an override or adjust some of my customization so that we're being a little bit more aggressive last minute. You can see exactly when you're booked as well. Now, just to be clear, the prices that you see here are not the prices that you actually booked at. Those are the prices, again, that we're pushing to your connected account. Though I believe the prices that are crossed out are the prices that we last saw from Airbnb or Verber, if you're using that data set, when the dates are actually either booked or blocked by the users that you're comparing yourself to, or by the hosts that you're comparing yourself to. Any questions here?
There's some specific questions, but I'll keep answering those, Becca, via typing. But if you can go into hotel data and keep moving through those.
Yeah. Beautiful. So we kind of looked at all this. So next, the hotel data tab is actually the sort of brand new section. Now, we did have hotel data featured before, but we've made it a lot better. So again, you're going to find it right next to that neighborhood data tab. And I'm actually just not going to use the slides. We're going to just scroll up on our screen here. And you'll see it just next to neighborhood data. Now, by default, we're going to show you the 10 closest hotels that are listed on booking.com with 3 or more stars. Now, you might notice in your sort of hotel comp set that initially not all of these are hotels. Some of them might be either apartments or resorts that are listed on booking.com in a type of way that's making us pick them up. If you don't want to see any of these specific listings, like if Lifehouse is not one that I want to compare myself to, I can just get rid of these. But if there are listings or hotels around me that I know that I really should compare myself to, I can just type it in to search, or just below there is a similar location map here. So I can see all of the hotels around me and say, okay, the Good Time Hotel, let's take a look. Let's see if this is something that I really want to compare myself to, or be aware of their trends, at least maybe not compare if you have, maybe a larger listing that isn't really hotel-like. So the Good Time, that might be a good one for me to add. It's not currently in my list. So I'll just come in here and I'll type in Good Time. And then to update this pricing chart, I'll just click this little button here. Now you have 2 options here. You can view the prices in a chart form, or if you prefer to see them in a graph, you can see them here. Now, again, it looks like for some reason this is really zoomed out. We're going to use those the graph skills that we learned a little bit ago to zoom in to really gain insight into the pricing of all these hotels. Again, maybe I don't want to see all of those. I want to save them, but I only want to look at a couple at a time. I can just go through and hide all the ones that I don't want to see initially and just compare myself to that good time hotel. Now, this is showing you the hotel pricing based on length of stay. So right now 2 is selected. That's what we're going to select by default. But you might want to see how the length of stay changes the pricing requirements for these different hotels. So maybe you as an operator have a minimum stay of 3 nights. You might want to just look at the prices for 3-night stays, right? Because it doesn't really, if you aren't allowing 1-night stays in your listing, then what a hotel is pricing for a 1-night stay might not necessarily be helpful to you. If you want to look at maybe longer stays and see how things change, if people are staying for a full week or more, this might give you a little bit of insight into whether or not you should discount for longer stays. Put in weekly discounts, length of stay pricing, or even just lower your prices if you have that longer minimum length of stay. Any questions here?
There is a question around how do you know which hotel should you be comparing yourself to? Any particular factors or any thoughts around that, Becca?
That's a good question. Well, first, you want to think whether, or just generally, how your listing sort of compares to the same travelers that are looking for hotels. If you have a 7-bedroom home, looking at hotel rooms might not exactly be super comparable. You can look at them to see how their pricing is changing for high demand dates. Like if you look at this graph, maybe there's some sort of event that's coming up and you want to see if all the hotels are raising their price. That might be a good way for you to use this information. This is a studio apartment in this demo account. So this is actually very similar to a hotel room in a sense. I would look at, if you're not already aware of the hotels in your area, take a look at this map and just, get an idea of the landscape of your market, see what the hotels look like. See, are these, are they priced higher than me? What do they look like aesthetically? Are they a match? I think aesthetics has a good amount to do with it. So like if I really put a lot of time into designing my short-term rentals, I might actually be competitive with a hotel that is really like beautiful like this one. Anything that you would add, Richie?
No, I think primarily, like you said, right? It's about understanding the audience that you have, and since you hopefully know the neighborhood already, you can look at which hotels have a similar kind of audience that they attract and add those. But short of anything, I'd probably pick similar segment of hotel, right? Say I have a luxury property, I'd pick a luxury-ish hotel, maybe not super luxury because they also have a lot of services that they provide on top of just the quality of the property, right? But I'd look for something that your guests would interchangeably look at, right? When trying to map this against. There's a question around hotel table or graph doesn't give an option to put number of bedrooms. I guess it takes from the subject listing because the prices displays need to know how many bedrooms is for besides the stay. I guess, yeah, I think you get the question. Like, does this take number of bedrooms into account? Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if like a future version of this may have that, but currently we are just getting the rack rate, which is typically the lowest rate listed on booking.com. So if a hotel has 10 different bedroom types and the sort of least expensive is like the studio basic package, that's the pricing that we're pulling here.
Yeah, and also one additional thing to add, right? Like, see, normally in some settings, customers may view your property as premium or at a discount to hotels. What I mean by that is you have a 3-bedroom, getting 3 rooms in a hotel may be considered a premium to getting a 3-bedroom vacation rental, or might even be considered a discount because they're traveling with family and they want access to that kitchen, etc. Right? So it depends. Today, where it says your listing, those prices are of course your prices based on your bedroom count, but the hotel data is based on the lowest rate available for that hotel or that resort room in booking.com. Right? In future, we will add bedroom count also as a metric, but today when you're comparing, yes, you should realize that you're comparing potentially a 3-bedroom to a single bedroom or single room kind of category, especially when you're comparing it against the hotel. Yeah, but if you click on that hotel, it will also take you to the booking.com view of that hotel, and you can see what the lowest room size is and what kind of occupancy. So in this case, we'd be pulling whatever the lowest on this list is, right? So yeah, like looks like a double bed or 2-bed kind of a place that we're pulling. There's a question around grayed out, crossed out dates mean that they're all booked. That's correct. If it's grayed out, crossed out, that means either they're all booked, or so when it's grayed out in yours, that means it's booked. When it's grayed out and there's a price to it and closed, that means it is that's the last price we saw, and it's booked now. And when it says NB, we weren't able to determine what the price of that booking could look like, but we aren't able to book that when we try to go on booking.com and try to book for that date. We are not able to book that date.
Which you can pay attention to those sometimes. I know hotels will sometimes block dates for high demand events. So if you see a lot of hotels blocking their dates, look at your pricing, because if other people can't book those dates, then they might be coming to vacation rentals where bookings are available.
That's correct. So now, if the hotel rates are going up and down, do I need to actively go in and manually override, or does PriceLabs pick that up? What's the thought process there?
Yeah, so we do factor in hotel pricing. It's a very small portion of our algorithm. So say we're not really seeing demand develop for certain dates, but we're seeing all of the hotels in your area start to raise prices. We'll say maybe something's going on, and we'll raise your prices in response. It's a little bit harder to 100% base yourself off of hotel pricing, because they have internal events, conferences, weddings, things like that they're also pricing for, things that really aren't going to affect maybe your listing. Also, generally, if you look really far out, sometimes hotel revenue managers do kind of crazy things with their pricing. So it's a good benchmark, but I wouldn't necessarily come in here and unless you are like a very much a direct competitor. We do have some customers that are actually operating inside some of these hotels, renting some rooms out as short-term rentals. That situation, yes, you probably want to pay a little bit more attention to the pricing of the actual hotel you're operating in. But as a short-term rental operator, sort of outside of the hotel, I would use this as reference information, but I wouldn't like 100% match it by any means.
Yeah. Cool. We have 10 minutes. Becca, can you quickly pop into portfolio analytics if you have that?
Pacing?
Yeah. Because also you have a better portfolio analytics setup than I do. Right. If you're particularly a large listing owner, right? If you have a bunch of listings, and if you want to understand how your properties are doing relative to last year, relative to market, and when we looked at it in neighborhood data or on that hotel data, we looked at individual listings, but you may want to look at it at a portfolio level or at a group level or any of that, right? This is where pacing charts can really help, where you can see, for example, in this case, for Becca, all of her properties, what does the pricing look like? she can also see occupancy. Now here she's not looking at market occupancy, and for now she's looking at her occupancy and then her occupancy same time last year. Similarly, she's looking at ADR and not just her ADR, but she's looking at her ADR same time last year. Same for RevPAR, right? She can very easily do that. Also, if she has a certain market where she wants to compare it against, very similar to how you did that in neighborhood data, you can come in and you can say, I want to look at all of these metrics in comparison to a certain market and a certain comp set. She can do that, and so it will not just show her portfolio's occupancy and last year occupancy, but it will also show for that comp set that she's created via market dashboard, what is that market's occupancy, etc. And then finally, one big change that we had made to our pacing curves last year, or pacing charts last month, was introduce this concept of booking curves. Booking curves allow you to understand how you're tracking revenue or RevPAR or revenue or occupancy or ADR for a certain month from how many days out, right? So if you can go up on the revenue chart, I think that's the most easiest to understand, right? So for example, for the month of April, can you turn off everything else, Becca, and just show month of April? So for month of April, this is how the revenue curve looks like. The month of April's revenue started building up somewhere around, it looks like around 10 days before April 2023. So roughly, what is that? About 7 months, right? About 7 months before, right? And then slowly it's been building up. It's building up. And then in the last 60 days to 90 days is when you really saw the pickup. And you'd see a very similar graph in terms of occupancy just below the revenue graph, where you can see, for example, how the revenue for April has slowly built up over the, occupancy of April has slowly built up. And today, there are still 5 or 6 days left, which is why the graph has not gone down to 0. It's still showing day 5. When we are on 31st of April, it'll show as, is there 31 days? No, 30 days. When we are at April 30th, it'll show as at 0 and the final occupancy achieved, right? So if you, for example, if Becca clicks May graph as well on this, you can now see, hey, May is in terms of revenue picking up a lot faster than April, and so that's a good sign. But we also look at how the occupancy on May is doing, and we see occupancy is not doing terribly too far ahead or too far behind, which is to saying May is a more expensive month naturally, and I am generating more revenue, even though driving very similar occupancies as I was driving for the month of April, right? Now, you can also take this and compare it against last year, same time. So right now we're seeing just the current month, right? But say I wanted to look at custom months where I wanted to see April 2023 and corresponding last year, the booking curve. So I can look at, this is how the revenue last year trended. So we're getting to, looks like very similar numbers in revenue. The booking was a little bit slower for some periods of time. What I mean by that is on day 49th, in 2023, we had collected more revenue than we had in 2022. In terms of occupancy graph, if I look at the same thing, very similar occupancy graphs, but last minute bookings are not as much happening in 2023 as they happened in 2022, right? Again, this is just dummy data. It does not necessarily mean your market's experiencing this, but this is something that you can use on pacing graphs. Again, don't have to use these. This is more if you are really in tune and you want to get in and understand more. We hope this would be helpful for you to see. Cool. If you can give me access to share screen, Becca.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a quick poll that I'm launching. And along with that, I just want to understand a little bit about how, a little bit about the folks on the webinar, and also if you're already using these, if you find us sharing more data helpful, and if you find these webinars helpful. Along with that, I'm going to share my screen again now and talk a little bit about the portfolio analytics that Becca has just shared. So there are a few different chart types, and we'll again make this accessible via email, but we show occupancy charts where you can very easily compare your occupancy compared to last year final. And this allows you to understand how your occupancy is doing. Are you doing better or worse this year? It also allows you to compare against market. What that allows you to do is it try to answer the question of, is it my listing or is it the market, right? So it allows you to answer that question. For ADR, again, you can compare how you're doing compared to last year. It allows you to see, would you be doing better or worse, right? You can also compare against market ADR for a very similar reason. Is it my listing or is it the market? You can also see market ADR last year today to understand, because as the days go by, average daily rate keeps evolving. So it helps you to understand, compared to last year today, how are we doing? Similarly, for RevPAR, you can again do your listing versus market same time, and these help you answer 3 questions. For your own listing, you can understand, are you doing better or worse compared to last year for your portfolio? For market, you can try to understand, is the market good or not? And market same time last year helps you understand, is it just your property or is it the whole market? Hope that helps. We're getting to time with a few minutes left. We'll start taking questions. And if we haven't fully gotten to your question, our apologies, as we we'll also go through at the end of this webinar, look at the questions that we haven't been able to answer and try to answer those. There's a question around where is pacing found. You can find this in our portfolio analytics product. If you look at PriceLabs and if you're using us on a desktop, at the top of the screen, you'd see a black bar and you'd see something called as portfolio analytics. Under that, if you click that, you'd see 2 charts. One of them says, I think, pacing charts. And if you click that, that's where you'd find it. Adil, very similar question. You'd find that under portfolio analytics. My graphs here don't show solid black line for my occupancy this year. I only see last year occupancy. Lisa, might be because we don't have occupancy for your property. Send us a screenshot at support@pricelabs.co and we can look into what specifically you're looking at. There's a question about, what is RevPAR? Becca, do you want to answer this?
Sure. So RevPAR is probably one of my favorite KPIs or key performance indicators. Essentially, if you look, it's a balance between your ADR, your average daily rate, and your occupancy. So first, to really understand RevPAR, you have to really understand ADR and occupancy. ADR being, if you're looking at a period of time, say 10 days, and the sum of basically all of those days that have been booked, it's the average of the daily rate for those booked nights, right? So maybe, $100. Now, your occupancy, if you're looking at that same 10 days, how many of those days are actually booked? 5 of the 10 days are booked. That's 50% occupancy at $100 a night, right? Now, you could have, if you just look at one of the 2 metrics, it's not really giving you the full picture, right? So if you have an ADR of $1,000, but you have very low occupancy, you might not be doing very well. If you have 100% occupancy, but you have ADR of $1, also not doing really great. So RevPAR balances the 2. Essentially, you multiply your ADR by your occupancy percentage, and that gives you sort of a number that again balances whether you're, potentially pricing too low and have too much of an occupancy, or pricing too high and have too low of an occupancy. Hopefully that's a decent 30-second definition. I can try to find a help article with some KPIs.
RevPAR, yeah. Cool. I'll take the next question, Becca. There's a question from Felipe around the price comparison is always the lowest number of guests. 1 villa for 10 guests will show prices for 2 guests. And what about length of stay discounts, weekly, monthly, which price is compared? So when you're looking at compare competitor calendar, what we are looking at is we're going to Airbnb or Booking.com or VRBO, and we're running a quote for the least price that we can get, right? So if they have allowed that villa to have 2 guests only, and then they upcharge for more guests, then we'll pull for 2 guests, right? And then secondly, we're pulling nightly rates. We're not pulling necessarily length of stay discounts, right? If you specifically want to filter for certain kinds of like only look for properties that allow X number of guests and have certain kind of weekly or monthly discounts, you can use market dashboard comp sets to pull those kind of pull those kind of comp sets in the market so that you can benchmark easily. Cool. Becca, you found another question to answer?
Yeah, so how do you account for occupancies that don't come through any channels but walk-ins? Is there a way to add them?
How do you account for occupancies that do not come through any channels, but rather walk-ins? So one, if you're using your property management system, I'm hoping you're adding them into the property management system. If not, if you're using an online travel portal directly like Airbnb or something, I'm hoping you're adding there. Unfortunately, if it's not directly added into your whatever channel you're connected via, whether that's a property management system or the online travel management system, we don't have an easy way to pull that into PriceLabs, right? We're using those connected channels. So for walk-ins, I would expect you're updating that in your property management system.
Yeah.
Becca, I found another question to answer.
I was answering date overrides. How did you access that last market data? I think that I can just share my screen. I'm wondering, I'm not quite sure when this question was asked. If you're looking at your portfolio analytics, to access market data, you can click up here. Essentially this pink square will allow you to select a market dashboard, and then you can create comp sets. You can select either a comp set that we've already created for you or one of the comp sets that you've created yourself and handpicked yourself. Hopefully that answers that.
Perfect. Cool. We're almost at time. We're going to look through your questions and get back to you. But if you ever have a question about PriceLabs, you can write to us at support@pricelabs.co. If you're in the middle of work and if you need help, there's also a chat at the bottom of PriceLabs screen. I do want to highlight anytime we run these webinars, right after these webinars, we get a bunch of questions. So our support becomes far too occupied. And so we tend to be a little bit slower. And also we are hiring for a bunch of folks on our product support team. So if you have any referrals, you can find them on our careers page, how to apply. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. In about 24 to 48 hours, we'll be updating this recording on the YouTube channel, and also we'll be sending you a copy of the recording. Thank you once again. And Becca, thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.